Welcome to Optily Radio, your regular 30-minute dose of everything you need to accelerate your e-commerce marketing success.
Hi there, my name is Nina White, and I'm going to be your host for Optily Radio, our new podcast that's here to help you accelerate your e-commerce marketing. The reason we created Optily Radio was to let e-commerce marketers everywhere take part in some of the great conversations that tend to happen in private Zooms or just casually over Slack. Each episode, we're going to have a different industry expert on the show and have a chat with them about some of the big topics of the day. It'll be me, and usually someone else from the Optilly team, to share their own expertise and insights. We've got a truly talented bunch of people here at Optilly, and it's not like I'm bumping into them at the office these days, so honestly, I'll take any excuse I can to chat with them. We here at Optilly have just launched a really cool new platform that helps marketers figure out which Facebook and Google campaigns are working best for their advertising goals. It makes instant optimization recommendations and let you apply them straight from the dashboard. No need to leave the platform at all. You can try it out with our free 2-week trial, and I guarantee that you will love how quick and easy it is to use. Just go to optilly.com and you can get started in under 3 minutes. A bit about me before we dive into this show. I'm a digital marketing strategist with years of experience in marketing coordination, social media marketing, website management, and content writing. I've worked in a pretty interesting mix of industries, from academia to space electronics, and most recently to an AI research center and a virtual reality arcade. Now I've joined the great team here at Optily, and I'm really excited to talk to some of the leading experts in e-commerce and really get at the heart of what makes small and medium-sized businesses thrive in today's competitive landscape. So, whether you're just starting out with your e-commerce adventure or you've already got some years under your belt, we'll help you stay on top of all the platform updates, best practices, and industry trends to ensure your online marketing is successful and working for you, optimally. So without further ado, let's jump right into our very first interview. I'm really excited to introduce today's guest to you all, Brendan Hughes. Brendan is the CEO here at Optily and has decades of experience creating and implementing digital marketing and e-commerce strategies. He's led teams across many high-growth consumer-facing organizations, so he's very familiar with both the challenges and opportunities digital marketers face every day. And of course, a lot of these everyday challenges are heightened even more in uncertain times like those we're currently facing. And this is exactly why we've chosen to look at some big picture topics and strategies with our very first guest on the inaugural episode of Optily Radio. So welcome to our virtual studio, Brendan.
Hi, Nina. How are you?
Doing well. How are you today?
Yeah, good. Enjoying a little bit of spring sunshine.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. It was crowded by the canal all weekend, so it's definitely nice to see a bit of sunshine.
Yeah, it's good.
Great. So we'll get right into this, and please just go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself and kind of your experience that led you to be here at Optily.
Yeah, so look, this is great. This is our first Optily radio show, so I'm delighted to be on board, Nina. And I guess, look, my story in the journey with Optily started nearly over 2 years ago. I joined the company was then called Bionic, and I met the co-founders. And so Keith and Kieran, and they had built a really interesting product that solved a problem that I faced all through my career. So I spent most of my 20 years, I feel old, buying or selling paid media. So I was the digital marketing or e-commerce person in consumer companies, and I was charged with acquiring, converting, and retaining customers in consumer businesses. And in my last few years, I jumped across the fence and was selling media. So I worked in a large affiliate company, and then I also worked in a news publisher. And I guess by looking and working on both sides of the fence, I could see a lot of inefficiencies, right? So as somebody buying media, a lot of wastage that takes place when you're doing that, and a lot of things that just don't work, and you just have to get on with it. A lot of intransparency in terms of what is working and what is delivering. And then on the other side, when you're selling media, you can see a lot of wastage, and you can see a lot of middlemen maybe kind of taking margin out of the business. And what Keith and Kieran had done with Bionic at the time was create a bridge between the two big ad platforms, so Facebook and Google, who today take about 83% of the digital ad spend of all of the major kind of ad companies globally. And they created a bridge which was working on behalf of the advertiser. So our clients are primarily large agencies. So think of the big media agencies worldwide. And we were helping them to untangle the attribution spaghetti junction between Google and Facebook, trying to figure out what's working and what's not working. And then using that data in real time to optimize campaigns in Facebook or in the Google kind of marketing kind of platform. And the reason we launched Optilly in the last kind of few months was with the massive upsurge in e-commerce globally, we've seen a need for that type of solution for SMB e-commerce companies. So if you're advertising, you've created a remarkable product that you now want to scale in your local market or internationally, then you probably start organically and you build out through your own kind of organic reach in your network of people. But eventually you start spending money on channels like maybe it's Amazon, maybe it's Google and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. And as soon as you start doing that, more and more inefficiencies come in, because the big platforms, they don't work together. They don't play nicely together. They don't have any incentive to work together, and they can't because they're competing against each other. So it's up to the advertiser to try and figure out what's working and what's not working, where to invest their time and their ad spend, their money, to get a better return. And that can be hard. The big companies, the companies like we worked for in the past, the agencies and the big kind of multinational brands, they have data science teams, they've got marketing analysts and marketing scientists, and they've got massive kind of dashboarding tools and kind of data warehousing tools that can help them figure this out. So we built a solution, we sometimes call it enterprise for the little guys, but it's for medium-sized e-commerce companies, to help them to figure out, one, kind of what's delivering value right now, what's driving customers, what's driving the highest return on ad spend, what's converting, which channels are converting, driving customers who are converting at a higher level, and then using that data and providing recommendations. So maybe we might suggest take some budget from this campaign in Google, move it to this campaign in Instagram because it's working much better right now, and then with one click enabling you to make that change. So you don't have to go into the platforms themselves and try and do some calculations and figure out what you need to do or what you don't. So with one click, you can apply changes across multiple platforms. And the goal is to help people, to help e-commerce companies in particular, to get a better value and a better return from their time and their money in advertising across these big ad platforms.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, I mean, when I first started working here, that was one of the things that really struck me, was just that time-saving element. And we did a survey on LinkedIn a few weeks back asking people, just how many hours per week they normally spend on figuring out attribution and pulling all those spreadsheets from all over, from their analytics, from their ads, just trying to make sense of all of that. And a lot of people were spending 4, 6, sometimes 8 hours a week. And just being able to do that with the click of a button is just a lot of time saved. So
yeah,
it's really
I talked
great.
to one of our new clients come on a couple of weeks ago for the Optily app, and for me, we all create personas, right? When we design products and design marketing campaigns, and Adam was kind of my ideal persona, if you like, or a representative of a persona, because he was in 3 times a day on his ad platforms, tweaking, changing, growing, and he was growing his business, getting up to the seven-figure sums revenues from something that 6 months previously had been very small, and he needed to do that in order to find the opportunities, identify what was working, scale it up, to identify what wasn't working right now, but maybe was working yesterday, and scale that back. And if you're doing it properly, that's what you want to do, and it's what people want to do, but you can't humanly do it. You can't do it 7 days a week, 24/7. So this is where automation tools come in, and automation tools probably shouldn't be black boxes in terms of doing some magic or some dark arts, right? That you don't really understand what it's doing, but somehow it works. Ideally, it's doing the kinds of things you would want to do, but doing it more regularly and with more frequency than you could kind of humanly do. So that's what we're setting out to do. So in terms of the time saving with Optilly.
And so in the past year, obviously, it's been quite the roller coaster for a lot of companies. But launching a new company in, the middle of a pandemic, that's sort of accelerated the process, especially with a platform like this, right?
Yeah. So we've launched Optilly just in the last couple of months. We have a customer base primarily in Europe, and now many of our new customers are in the US, and our target market is in the US because e-commerce has exploded in particular in the States. And what we've seen is so many businesses pivot, right? So we've seen so many even traditional businesses change, reposition themselves as being, in particular consumer business focused on e-commerce. They've had to, and consumers are, that's how they want to interact. So for us, it's been quite a journey, moving from working with the big agencies, the big brand agencies, and now focused on where we see the greatest need at the moment, because ad spend last year across the big ad platforms went up by about 15% across digital ad spend, and so people are spending more. We know that that's also in the context of big industries like travel and hospitality having reduced its spend. So most of that new spend is coming from e-commerce. And we've seen massive inefficiencies. I had one friend, and we'll come on to it, I know, probably a little bit later on, but we're putting kind of a book together, a guidebook together for e-commerce brands who are doing digital advertising. And I was inspired to start that project by talking to Bob, as a friend of mine. He's a serial entrepreneur, built lots of different businesses. And I spoke to him a couple of months back, and he was talking about how he'd been advertising on Google for 6 months. And actually, he's been spending $2,000-$3,000 a month on the platform, and it wasn't working. It wasn't delivering any kind of efficiency for him. And he stopped spending. And within a couple of days, he got the call, which we all get those calls from the nice, helpful people at Google saying, "Hey, I see you were busy advertising, and now you've stopped. Is everything okay? Can I help in some way?" And he said, "Well, look, it wasn't working for me." So the Googler looked into his account and said, "Well, to be honest, probably about 80% of what you were doing was never going to work for you in terms of what your goals are." And this isn't a story about Google, right? It's a story about how, on one hand, how wonderful it is that we can all spend money to grow our businesses and scale. But on the other hand, how much money can easily be wasted by not doing the right things or knowing kind of what to do. So there's, from e-commerce businesses, so many of our own clients here in Optily, but obviously globally, are scaling so rapidly and having, really remarkable results. And yet you can't help but believe and know that there's a huge amount of waste kind of going on. And there's a couple of big guys benefiting most from that, right? And that's what we want to try and uncouple if we can.
Great. So you've already brought up the guidebook that you're working on. So you came up with the idea because of your friend Bob. But so who are the people who you think would most benefit from a book and like this, and what are some of the big takeaways in it?
Yes. So the target market for it are all of those e-commerce businesses who have, who got started, who got up and running, who've got a lot of their building blocks in place, and maybe they've started to spend a little bit in paid media, in across maybe Facebook and Instagram, maybe some Google shopping ads, etc. And they want to scale it, but it's not scaling for them. So they put some more money in, and it doesn't seem to deliver the same return. And so it's very easy to get started with paid media. It's very easy to, if you're on Shopify or WooCommerce, you can plug in your smart shopping campaigns and off you go, right? And it'll start working relatively quickly and relatively efficiently for you. But if you want to scale that beyond people who are actively in your market, who maybe are somehow familiar with your company or your product or your brand, then you need to invest a bit more through the funnel, and we can talk a little bit about that. But and in the old days, in I guess if you think of the big brand marketing companies, they would typically have suggested, and maybe still do suggest, spend the bulk of your budget for long-term growth on mass marketing, right? On broad reach kind of media, so TV, radio, print, etc. And what I've seen is that many of our e-commerce clients and many e-commerce people in general, we tend to be very much bottom funnel focused. So we're focused on key metrics such as return on ad spend, ROAS, or CPA, cost per acquisition. And there's not a lot of investment up the funnel. So what we're trying to do with the book is we have a framework that we've used for many years with kind of hundreds of clients, and with kind of millions of dollars of ad spend that works, right? So in terms of how we manage and bring and support consumers and users through their purchase journey, and what we're trying to do with that with the guidebook is to articulate that into an easy to digest framework for the business owner, the founder, the marketing manager, and even for the person who's responsible for this, so that they're thinking about this a little bit more strategically, and maybe if they're not doing all the work themselves, at least they're asking the right questions of the person or team or agency who is doing this work for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely been in the situation where I've been sort of the one-person marketing team coming into a super small business, and it's like, we're running ads, yes. Our target demographic is just everybody under 40. And it's like, yes. Well, I don't know if that'll work exactly. But yeah, there's a lot of pressure on very small companies, and having a framework of just knowing where to start, especially if they're, wearing multiple hats, and, maybe marketing isn't the only thing that they're doing. So having a good framework and knowing the best practices for e-commerce specifically, because there's so many things that don't apply to just digital marketing across the board that do need to be e-commerce specific. So it's definitely an interesting things in this book. I remember reading about the spray and pray tactics that aren't generally successful. So that's definitely one that I had to sort of tell them, like, yeah, no, that's not going to work very well. Like, you're just wasting your money on a really wide audience here.
Yeah, and look, that comes into it. So we flip. There's the marketing effectiveness kind of theory, and I buy into it to some extent, which is you have to spend some money upper funnel. Now, they'd suggest 60-40 split, upper funnel, lower funnel for long-term growth. What we're kind of suggesting is flip it the other way, right? Because and one of the things that the platforms, particularly the social platforms, are really, really great at is finding people who are in market for your product. They have a need for your product. They're just not actively searching for it, or maybe not even aware that they need your product, right? So there's a little bit of, well, maybe if we think about, I guess the concept of the funnel, right? And so the funnel is this kind of 100-year-old marketing concept, invented in the late 1890s by kind of an agency in the Midwest. And the thought process was that you try and align your advertising activities with the different stages of the purchase journey that consumers go through. So today, we could argue that the funnel is a bit irrelevant because every consumer goes through a completely unique purchase journey because there are so many touch points for your brand, be it, never mind your own website, but all your social presences, all the things that people say about you on review sites and where they find you in, are being sent on through, WhatsApp and kind of personal messaging that we just can't control. And yet all of the behavioral research over the last 100 years or so would suggest that actually, even if it's an instantaneous purchase or it's a purchase that takes 3 or 6 months, the stages of the purchase journey are relatively consistent. So in the first instance, there's a problem need recognition state. So people need to identify and become aware that actually I have a problem that needs solving, right? And then as part of that, maybe your product offering might be something that helps with that. The second stage is generally called research and evaluation. So now that they've recognized a problem that they want to solve and somehow they're motivated to solve it, then they will research, options, and they'll evaluate kind of different offerings, one against the other. And then on the third stage is the actual decision to make a purchase now. And one way to think about that is kind of, in the first step is like, why change? So why do I need to kind of think about changing what's going on in my life, like buy a new car, change my brand of dairy or whatever. The second one is kind of why you, so as why should I choose you as the offering or the products or the service provider that I'm going to go with. And then the last stage is kind of why now. So why do I make this change, and why should I act now and make this decision now? And so with that in mind, our funnel is already kind of structured. So at the top of the funnel, we call it inspire. So we're trying to obviously generate awareness and inspire people to think about the problem that they may have, and to think about us just in the context of that. And we want them to be inspired by who we are, the mission and the purpose of our company and of our product, and why we're different and what we're trying to do. We're trying to develop an emotional engagement with the consumer at the top of the funnel. And we need to go wide. We need to go broad very often because we're often not 100% sure who's actually kind of going to buy our product. And we can talk about that a little bit later on in terms of our data. But thankfully, with the tools that are available in the social channels in particular, then you can do that quite cheaply today. So you can target a very wide range of people very cheaply and measure effectively if they are engaging with your story, and then build those into an audience that then you can move through your funnel. Okay. At the next stage of the funnel, it's we call it the educate stage, but it's the why you. So you've sold me a vision or inspired me with a vision of how I can transform your life. Now I want to understand how you're better at doing this than others, or what are the benefits that can accrue from the different features of your product set. And again, in the social platforms in particular, there are very effective tools to help us to do that. We don't need to take them to our websites to fill them in the details of how our product can benefit them and can influence change in their lives. And then at the lower end of the funnel, then we're into probably the most expensive part of the funnel. So we don't want to waste all of that money, if you like, on very broad audiences. So we've constructed a narrow audience of people who've expressed purchase intent in our product, are probably actively searching for alternatives maybe in the market. So search tools start to come into their own, remarketing people who have engaged through multiple different platforms. And now we're trying to convince them with urgency and with offers and say, hey, now convert with us and buy from us today. So the funnel structure is very relevant. It might happen in an instant in terms of somebody sees and is and maybe with 1 or 2 sessions or visits to our website to convert, or it could happen over an elongated period of time. And where digital advertising comes in to complement our owned and operated activities. So It complements our own website and our conversion rate optimization we're doing on our own website. It complements our CRM strategy, so our email marketing and outbound marketing to customers. So it's what happens off our site, on the places where consumers are and shoppers are, in order to remind them to come back to us or to inspire them to engage with us in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it sometimes feels like the social media platforms can really read our minds. You just be thinking about, I'd really like a new pair of boots, and all of a sudden, without searching or anything, it's like, oh yeah, I did kind of want those pair of boots. So it's like, yeah, it's really amazing, like the amount of data that they have, and just it really does seem like sometimes they are reading our minds.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where we like our greatest asset, whether you're a new brand starting up and you have a small number of customers, or you've been around for let's say a longer period of time, then you actually have potentially a lot of data available to you. So we launched with a chain of bookstores, and they've only really been actively online for probably 9 months, and have started and achieving some really nice results, with the Google's smart shopping ads integrated into their Shopify platform, achieving maybe 20-25x ROAS, on campaigns.
And can you define ROAS in case some of our listeners don't know?
Yeah, sorry, return on ad spend. So for every dollar they spend, right, they're getting $25 of revenue, or they're able to attribute $25 of revenue kind of back to that.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah. So that was their starting point, and we worked with them to on a couple of fronts. So really to try and understand how they could scale that, because it wasn't scaling as quickly or as efficiently as they wanted, and they wanted to extend into other channels. And so we started with Facebook and Instagram, and kind of plugging them into the mix. And we kind of set out and said, look, well, we're not going to get the 25x kind of ROAS, so let's manage our expectations, because you're at kind of very, and not instantly anyway, and you're at the lower end of the funnel. But what we did in order to maximize, I guess, our opportunity, was we looked at the data that they had available to them. So they had lots of data in terms of the customers who'd purchased from them over the last 6 months. They had achieved, the right level of kind of marketing consent, and we started to work with them to help them to I guess build segments around their customer base. So in terms of who had purchased in what types of categories of product, in the bookstores, it's kind of fiction and non-fiction, and it's kind of food and cookery, and in kids books, and etc. And we started to overlay and that with recency and frequency modeling, which said, okay, well, who has purchased from us recently, who hasn't purchased from us recently, who purchased from us more frequently. So building out multiple segments, okay, using their own data, and then layering on top of that creative strategies. So talking to people who are interested in fiction, and talking to them about the latest fiction that has been released. Talking to people who are interested in fiction, but who haven't purchased from us maybe in the last kind of 3 to 6 months, and giving them something different. It's maybe a stronger message, which is, hey, remember us, and maybe here's a coupon that you can use the next time you purchase. And we started, because we were initially operating in a relatively small market, in their local market, we focused on traffic campaign, because there was brand awareness and the brand was well known. And with that traffic campaign, which was structured, aligning creative and audiences together, then we started immediately achieving 25 and 30x ROAS, return on ad spend. And we were like, oh, wow, okay. So we're hitting the right market with the right message, and they're reacting and responding to it. And we were very much in the education phase. So we're in the middle funnel, reminding or generating kind of awareness about the specific features and how they of their this book chain's offering, be it their pricing on certain lines, and their delivery proposition, the speed of delivery, and some of their local heritage, and all the kind of things that would resonate with their audiences. So it was our education phase, when we sometimes call that a traffic phase, because we're trying to drive people kind of to the website so they can kind of do more digging. And as I say, we're getting 25, 30x ROAS, so we're delighted with that. And then we went live with the lower funnel conversion, why now kind of campaigns. And we were getting 40, 45, and we're kind of in the middle of striving to get the golden 50x ROAS with those campaigns. So I think if you, throughout the funnel, if you can align your the data you have about your customers and the different segments of customers and what they like, what resonates with them, with a creative message, and that's fit for purpose for the different channels. So we would have obviously a different message and a different way of talking to people in social, Facebook, Instagram, versus Google, or Google Search, or Google Display Network, or YouTube. And getting that fine-tuning at setup stage, the audiences with the creative, and then ensuring that we're measuring the right things at the different stages of the funnel is setting you up for success.
So just A/B testing different creatives and different copy at every step. Yep. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, no. And we sometimes call what we do, we call it multivariant testing on steroids. So you especially when you're launching in a new campaign structure, a new strategy early on, clients say to us sometimes, how many variables do you want? I was like, give us as many as possible, and then we let the algorithms, be it our own algorithms from our platform or the algorithms from the ad platforms, combined, figure out what's actually working, and then optimizing towards what's driving the results you're looking for.
So just follow the numbers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. That's a super campaign, and I'm really excited to see how that pans out. Yeah. So, well, it looks like it's almost time for us to wrap up here. And I want to end on a nice takeaway note for our listeners. So if they remember one thing from this half hour, if there's one thing they can implement today that will help them accelerate their online business, what would that be?
So we have a huge amount of data at our fingertips. Okay. And maybe the best advice I can give you is, don't just look at the data that let's say the channel that you're advertising on is giving you. Be a little bit skeptical, a little bit cynical, and understand that they're not lying to you, right? So if Facebook says to you, hey, we got you 100 conversions, and Google says we got you 100 conversions, and you only got 150, then it's not that they're lying, it's just that they don't understand what else is happening on a customer's path to purchase outside of their own platform. So either using something like Google Analytics or an attribution solution like Optilly, start to try and decouple that so that you're in a better position to understand where to invest, and invest in the things that are having the highest impact on conversions when you look at them across channels. And with something again like Optilly, you can see those recommendations, those pointers towards what you could or maybe should be doing to get better value. And then obviously with our solution, with one click, you can implement those changes. But you don't have to look too far, is what I'm saying, in terms of the data is available to you between the platforms, connecting your Google Analytics, looking at your e-commerce sales stats, and try and form a unified view of that is the first step. Because then you can see, this is what's happening. This is how customers are interacting with me through advertising. and what they do when they come to my site then after either seeing an ad or clicking on an ad, and use that data then to make better decisions.
Super great. So sort out the data and see what's working.
Yeah, have a healthy skepticism around the numbers. Okay, so I say, look, nobody's lying to you, right? The ad platforms are not lying to you about what's happening. It's just not the whole truth, right? The truth is somewhere between what they're saying individually and then what you can see in your analytics tool, which maybe underrepresents what they're doing, and what you're actually doing, selling via your e-commerce platform. So healthy skepticism,
Bit of a
but
puzzle.
try and find a solution, even if it's not a perfect solution, a solution that helps you to understand a customer's paths to purchase, that you don't just rely on last click attribution models. You start to look at upper funnel, lower funnel, and how people are moving through the purchase journey and then ultimately purchasing with you.
Super. Thank you so much for being our first guest here at Optily Radio. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, yeah. Really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to lots more of these with hopefully far more interesting people than me over the next few weeks and months.
Oh, there will be many more. Looking forward to having you on the show.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you. Wow, so there were a lot of great tips there from Brendan on how to structure your sales funnel, the importance of data and proper attribution to help you figure out what's working and what isn't, and some of the difficulties in doing just that, which are exactly why Optilly was created in the first place. So if you're interested in checking out Brendan's new ebook, which has laid out all of this and more, there's a link in the description where you can download it completely free from our website. And we just want to thank you for joining us in this very first episode of Optily Radio, the podcast that's here to help you accelerate your e-commerce marketing success. And if you've enjoyed today's chat with Brendan, please make sure to subscribe to our show on Spotify, iTunes, or Google Podcasts, and to check out the video cast on Optilly's YouTube channel so you can put some faces to names. Join us again in 2 weeks when we'll have Barry Schwartz in to talk about the changes to Google, the future of search, and what PPC trends you should be on the lookout for. He's the founder of Search Engine Roundtable, CEO of Rusty Brick, and an overall Google guru. And I'm really looking forward to chatting with him, so you definitely won't want to miss out on this one. And make sure to follow us on social media and join in the conversation. You can follow us at Optily Global for regular updates, and also check out our site that's chock full of resources for running online ads and e-commerce marketing strategy at optily.com. Stay safe and catch you back here next time on Optily Radio.